we've seen every one of these guys play. We both have, and so that's a good way to start. So I figured the perfect person is Bob Ryan, and he joins me now. Bob, welcome. How are you?
I am doing as well as anybody has a right to do in the circumstance we're living in. Thank you.
Bob, did you have any input into this ESPN thing?
No, I only found out about it 2 days ago.
Oh, okay. I mean, God forbid they would think of you as
no, I have been a part of other previous panels, the 50th anniversary, and the original 50 greatest and all that in those days. But no, so I'm not a part of it. So no, had not. Right. I'm just an interested observer.
74. First, from this standpoint, I thought of some guys that aren't on the list, top of the head stuff. These are the guys I thought about: Nate Thurmond, Dave DeBusschere, Sam Jones, Gus Johnson, Jerry Lucas. Give me some guys you thought about who weren't on the list.
Okay, I wrote down a few, and I didn't have a chance to get them all, but here's the list. I had 5 names, and you named one that I said, oh, my God, how did I leave this one off when you said Sam Jones? Nate Thurmond, Hal Greer.
Hal Greer, good one. Billy Cunningham, very good one, too, yes.
A guard who, in my opinion, was a guard who, on the all-decade team of the 70s, the 2 guards were just Pete Maravich and Tiny Archibald.
Another good one. You got me on that one, too. Very good one.
You mentioned Sam. Yes, yep. Sam Jones could have been on there.
DeBusschere was another good one.
DeBusschere, I wrote DeBusschere down, of course.
And Gus Johnson, I thought of, and I thought of some other guys that maybe, like Connie Hawkins. We know he didn't play long enough in the NBA. A guy like that who we know had all-world talent. But I mean, overall, there was some guys. You mentioned a couple of good ones. Billy Cunningham's a very good one. Nate Archibald led the league in assists and scoring in the same year. I mean, that's an incredible achievement.
It wasn't like it was his only outlier year. He was, and if you look at the '70s in the NBA and pick an all-decade team, I think you can make a strong case that he was the starting guard along with Maravich as a decade of the 70s.
All right, let's leave the top 10 alone and really leave the top 20 alone and go the rest of it first. Mm-hmm. The first guy that jumps out to me that I thought was way too low at 64 was Earl Monroe. I was shocked that Earl. When I think Earl Monroe, I think of him as being a far bigger player and a far better player than number 64 on the list.
I would have started lower with Bernard King at 69, but you're right about Earl. I circled some that I thought should have moved up. Bernard King started with him at 69.
How about Pistol Pete? How'd you feel about him?
Pistol Pete, positively, 68. Earl, yes. Then I move up. Actually, look, you can nitpick a lot. Right. We can go over that. But 43, Rick Barry.
Oh, worst name on the entire list.
Has to go
top
much,
20
much, much
player
higher.
Of all time.
I mean, he's the second best. Well, he's one of the 3 best passing forwards, Bird and LeBron.
Totally agree.
And again, best passing forward in the history of basketball. He was a scoring machine.
Agree. I think a top. I'd say a top 20 player. I really. I know guys don't like him. I know people don't like him. I know basketball people don't like him. I know he was a royal pain in the butt. I understand that. But you know this as well as I do. Rick Barry's one of the great forwards of all time.
You know, without any question, any question, and so he's vastly under.
I totally agree. How do you feel about your buddy Cousy?
The difficult thing I got this. There's 3 prominent stars who were exclusively in the 50s. Well, not exclusively, but predominantly in the 50s. They're hard to slot because of the athleticism upgrade. Cousy's at 41, Mr. Basketball, the only person ever given that title in the 20th century. I would have liked to see him a little higher, but I'm not. I think he should have been because of the historical impact for Americans of a certain age. Bob Cousy's one of the most prominent athletes. He's almost like the basketball. Now, I'm not. You may see if you think what you think of this one. I think that for people of the septuagenarians and up, that he is the basketball equivalent of DiMaggio for them.
Wow.
He's an icon that transcends the talent.
Well, listen, when you walked into a gym as a kid, and you tried to do something fancy on the court, somebody would say to you, "Who do you think you are, Bob Cousy?"
Positively,
Bob Cousy. That's all they would say was, who do you, if you did it in baseball, they'd say, who do you think you are, Babe Ruth? They'd say, who do you think you are, Bob Cousy? That was
right. And this is where, a younger person only knowing numbers wouldn't understand the impact. He had a social impact. He was the most famous basketball player of the 20th century for most people, frankly.
Absolutely.
And the other guy who did make the list at 34 is Mike Ann. And I know damn right well that athletically Mike Ann would be lucky to be a backup center today.
Right.
I understand that.
But Mike Ann's impact on the sport was incredible. Absolutely. And let me give you a guy they didn't have to put in. We're both glad they did. They didn't have to put Walton on the list. It was an homage. But you know what? At the top of his game, he was a top 10 player or 15 player. But he only had 2 or 3 good seasons. So really one brilliant and a couple healthy. But I like that they put him in because it's an homage to a great player.
We're on the same page today because you know how I feel. I think that if I were starting a game in which planet Earth were in defense,
I agree with you.
Under attack from an alien force, and the losing planet would be in servitude for all eternity, and I had the first pick of anyone who's ever laced up a sneaker to win this one game tonight, I want him as my center.
Listen,
he's my first pick. He's ahead
agree.
of Russell. He's ahead of Wilt. He's ahead of everybody else. But you're right. I'm pleasantly surprised that he got any.
Yeah, me too.
Notice at all.
I didn't think.
By the way, let me just say, blanket. I'm pleasantly surprised at the generality of the list, and particularly the top 10, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
But okay.
Okay. Now let's go. You mentioned Mike and
one outrage. I mean, absolute.
Well, there's 2 of them. Let me give you 2 that I think are just. I got a couple of them, but let me start.
Actually, I got 2. One.
First of all, I had a dog named Hondo. John Havlicek at 33 is ridiculous. Okay, utterly, figuratively, and you and I both know it. And at 22, Elgin Baylor is way too low, also. God. But Havlicek and Elgin Baylor are 2 of the greatest players of all time.
People are going to think that we planned this.
No, I'm being honest. Well, because we both know what we're talking about. We watch these guys play. That's why.
John Havlicek, it was when he died, it was damned with faint praise as the greatest sixth man of all time, which he was. The fact of the matter is that it was a technicality. But in his second year in the league, he was second on the team in minutes played, only to Bill Russell. So he came off the bench, and he still would average 40 minutes a game. So forget the six-man nonsense. He's the best two-way position player, mid-sized player in history. And at guard,
great defender, great defender too.
He was every bit as good as Oscar and West, and in fact better in his last 5 years of his career. Okay, and you're right. Elgin Baylor individually changed basketball. He's the most significant offensive player of the last 60 years. He changed basketball, a game that was horizontal and a little bit vertical, and he made it diagonal.
Why do you think?
Angles that were never seen before. He invented all modern individual basketball stems from 2 people, and mostly Elgin Baylor, and the second one you mentioned, Connie Hawkins.
Well, answer me this, okay? We're talking with Bob Bryant. You are Mr. NBA, okay? Explain to me this. Why a guy, and if people don't realize, folks, this was a player who, along with Jerry West, would get to the finals and then lose to the great Celtic teams who had just better players, and more of them with Russell and all their players. This guy averaged 34 points and 15 rebounds, 38 points, 34 points, 27 points, 29 points, 35 points, 18 rebounds in a game. Think about this. This is a small forward doing this.
6'5", a great rebounder, a great ball handler, a charismatic player.
Could float like crazy, would float through the air. Yeah.
Modern individual basketball offense begins with Elgin Baylor and then runs through runs to Dr. J and eventually to Michael Jordan. That's the lineage. He's the godfather of the great godfather of Michael Jordan is Elgin Baylor.
Elgin Baylor, folks, for his career averaged 27.4 a game for his career. I mean, think about that. It's I cannot believe for some reason. I understand. You know why, Bob? Because somewhere along the way, we started, people who do this, they look at 2 things. How many MVPs did they win? Remember, Wilt and Russell were in the league at the time. I mean, and they were winning the MVPs every year. And then on top of it, how many championships did you win? That's all they look at. How many MVPs? How many championships? That's not all it was in those days. That's why guys like Oscar Robinson don't make the top 10, or Elgin Baylor gets put at 20. Listen, let me be fair to this. I've been a big defender of Scottie Pippen's worth for years. The idea of Scottie Pippen being better than Elgin Baylor or John Havlicek is the most ridiculous thing I ever heard in my life.
Well, it's right up there. It's certainly in the top 10 of things. And no offense, he's a wonderful player, but he's not on the level of John Havlicek. And that period.
Okay, let me get. I got a problem with. Listen. I have a problem with Jerry West being 16. I also have a big problem, and this will really, if I have a young person, I will go crazy. I have a problem with Curry being 13 to begin with, and then him being ahead of Jerry West. In no world where I watch basketball in my life is Curry ahead of Jerry West. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm a Curry guy, and I'm making. He's the greatest shooter who's ever lived. The list, I'll tell you, from looking at this list, from 16 on down, once we get past the most overrated great player in the history of sport, let alone basketball, Karl Malone, whose numbers belie the fact that he's one of the worst clutch players who ever lived. So
that's good, and I think Moses. I think Moses is underrated too, and I think Moses is underrated.
Moses should be.
Yes.
Moses, first of all, Moses is. The top 5.
All right, let's start. Let's go back to the 30s for a second. You got Isaiah at 31. What do you think about that? You okay?
I'm surprised. It's about right. He's right there clustered.
I don't like Harden, but his numbers are good.
Guards. You got 4 guards in a row there. 30, 29, 28, 27. 3 in a row. 4 in a row. Isaiah.
All right. If you had a game to win, if you had a game to win, would you take Stockton, Iverson, Nash, Isaiah, or Harden? Which one?
I wouldn't take Harden.
Either would I. I can't stand Harden. But he's 32. He's 32. But which one of the 5 would you take? Which one of the 4 would you take? Isaiah, Nash, Iverson, or Stockton?
Who's capable of the best game? Is it going to put it that way?
Yeah.
Whose game?
Isaiah.
Take Isaiah.
I think so too.
His highlight film in the playoffs is almost second only to Michael.
He had some incredible finals. He had some incredible finals. He really did.
I was there for the 25-point third quarter.
Yeah.
I was there when he scored 16 points in a minute and a half against the Knicks in Game 5 in 1984. His highlight film, he's capable of extraordinary things. I would have to, and he's a controversial character. I understand that. But I would say I would go Isaiah. I would want the steadiness of Stockton. I would take the Iverson was capable of great things, but I like Nash. I'd go that way. I'd go Isaiah, Stockton, Nash, Iverson among those 4.
Are you okay with Kidd, McHale, Ewing, Pettit, Frazier?
I wish I could get McHale higher. Obviously Pettit. I'm glad they got him at least as high as
they had. He's a little low, but he's okay. But
I understand.
I think McHale's. I think McHale's okay if in the top 40. I think McHale's okay where he is.
McHale, McHale is still. He's the greatest low post scorer.
Kidd's a really good player. I don't have a problem with Kidd. I think Kidd was a really good player.
No, the guy that I think probably does well.
Go ahead.
Interesting. Well, Barkley at 23. I think I got to move him up. I want Barkley ahead of Dirk. I want Barkley ahead of certainly ahead of Malone.
I think Barkley is better than Pippen, Garnett. Nowitzki's interesting with Barkley, but he's definitely better than Garnett and Pippen, no question.
Well, Garnett
and I'd take Barkley over Karl Malone in a big game any day of the week.
Oh my God! Listen,
any
on the
day of the
Dream
week.
Team, it was such a joke that Barkley, who was the best player in those games, he was the best player on the team. Michael, we always kidded in the Dream Team. Michael's game was going to depend on whether he played 36 or 54 in the afternoon,
Yep.
But he played when he felt like playing, and some games he mailed in. Barkley came to play every night. He was the best player on the team.
Bob Knight told me in '84. He told me that when he ran the trials, he said Barkley. He cut Barkley from the team, as we all know, but he told me Barkley was the best player, but he warned him, don't come back heavy. And he came back heavy, and he said, what are we going to do? He said Barkley dominated the entire proceedings and was the best player in the whole trials in '84, better than everybody on the team.
And especially since the praise he eventually would lavish on Michael, that elevated Michael. All right, so Malone, this is a personal.
Tell me about Karl Malone. So
I got an agenda. Karl Malone's overrated. Period. I don't want to hear about it.
Okay, I don't argue with you. How do you feel about Nowitzki? Okay with Nowitzki?
I like Nowitzki. I got to put Barkley ahead of him.
All right, I like both of them. I can live with those two. I like Barkley ahead of Pippen. I like him ahead of Karl Malone. I agree with you there. Or Garnett. I'm not a big Garnett guy either myself.
Well, I think he's. I think he's not getting his proper due. When the biggest problem with Garnett was he didn't want to take over. He didn't have.
Yeah, that wasn't his thing. If you're a top 20 all timer, you got to take over the game.
It's a fair argument, and we can have it later when the Hall of Fame comes.
All right, now Now,
but I take Barkley over him.
All right.
Barkley's explosiveness over him, yes.
You agree? I got Moses Malone too low at 18. I would put him in the top 12, 13 players.
Well, we got to. Do you like Moses better than Olajuwon?
No, I don't.
Well,
I like him better than Shaq. I like him better than Shaq.
I kick Shaq out of the top 10.
Well, so do I. I'll get
put him behind both Moses and
all right,
Hakeem.
When we get to the top 10, let's go there now. We're talking about Bob Bryant. Here's how I did the top, Bob, and you can tell me what you think. I think there's 5 guys that are undisputed. We can decide how we're going to ring them up, but there's 5 guys who are standalone at 5, at the top 5. Jordan, LeBron, and the 3 centers. Wilt, Russell, and Kareem. Those, to me, they all have won 4 or more MVPs. They've all been incredibly dominant players. That we can argue how we want to put them, okay? And they didn't put them that way because they put Jordan 1, LeBron 2,
yep.
Kareem 3, Russell 4, and they put Magic ahead of Wilt, which is, I think, ridiculous. I think I would put it, here's how I put it. Russell, Jordan, Wilt, LeBron, Kareem is how I put it. Do you argue with the top 5? Is there anybody you would put in with the 5?
No, I mean, it pains me to keep the. I think they got the right 9-1. They got the right people. We just have to reshuffle them.
I don't have Kobe
correct.
in the top 10.
I put him in.
I have the Big O in the top 10 instead of Kobe.
Well, and that's tough, and I wouldn't have any problem kicking Kobe and exchanging Oscar.
Here was
Kobe.
my second 10. Here's what I have. I have Big O 6, Bird 7, Magic 8, Duncan 9, Olajuwon 10. What would you have 6 to 10?
Okay, well, let's see. First, I got Russell 1 and Michael 2.
Okay, so do I. So do I. Who do you have 3? Who do you have 3? Would it be Wilt, LeBron, or Kareem?
Kareem.
Okay, I have Kareem 5. Okay, you know why? Because I thought Kareem was a little soft at times. I thought he was.
Well, he stopped rebounding for about 10 years.
Right.
Frankly, although you look back at his early days, he did it. But
any way you want to put the top 5, I'll take him in any order. I'll take him in any order. I would go Russell 1 because of the championships and Jordan 2, and then I'd go Wilt, LeBron, Kareem. If you want to move one of them around, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm those 5. Then I got the Big O, which I think deserves to be there. I think people don't understand, and you do, but don't understand how good Oscar Robertson was. He was a perfect basketball player, as we all know. He just was on the wrong teams. And then Bird and Magic both belong there. I have Duncan there. And then I go Olajuwon 10. I would slide Kobe and Shaq into the next 5 players. So I don't have either one in the top 10. How about you? Who's in the top 10?
I definitely want Shaq out of there.
How about Kobe? You got Kobe in?
I hold it against Shaq that he never once led the league in rebonding, and he should have led the league in rebounding 10 times.
I agree. And also, I just think he was lazy. I think he was lazy.
Yeah, he didn't. Believe it or not, folks, he didn't fulfill his full destiny. There's no question about that.
You go Bird Magic or Magic Bird?
Oh God,
doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I'm a Larry guy naturally, and a Boston guy, and I did a book with Larry. And
are you okay with
Larry,
Duncan?
But I also totally respect Magic, and I know how much Larry respects Magic, and vice versa. You can't go wrong either way there.
Do you like Duncan in the top 10?
Yes.
So do I.
He's the greatest pure power forward ever.
And then I put Olajuwon 10. I think Olajuwon was that good.
Olajuwon, I absolutely. I think he's the 4th best center. I would, by the way, but he doesn't get in the top 10 because of the people we were mentioning. The more I talk about it, think about it. I'm with you on Oscar over Kobe. I am absolutely with you on that, and nothing against Kobe.
No,
but you're right. People have to be re-educated to how important a figure and how great Oscar Robertson was. He may be the greatest technician of all time.
I mean, John Wooden told me in an interview. I said, Coach, I know it's crazy, but what player do you think have you looked at and said, wow, he said Oscar Robertson's the greatest basketball player I've ever seen. That's what he said to me.
But that was a truth. At a point in time, that was true. And now we've had Michael and LeBron, and
no question.
That argument will have. Forever.
And I think they both were ahead of him, and I'm fine with that. I mean, I sat in a room with Oscar in my studio, and Oscar said to me, "I don't care what anybody says. I'm better than Michael Jordan." I said, "Well, I wish you could prove it, Oscar, but I mean, you were damn good." He goes, "No, I was better than he was. I did more. I said, "Well, listen, we could argue that all day, but he thought so." But let's be honest, we know how good he was. Bird, no question. Magic, no question. Duncan, we agree on. Olajuwon, Kobe. That's where I would also have Moses Malone in that next group. They also have.
Moses,
all right, let's go to a
now.
couple of these modern players. Do you think you like Curry as high as 13, or would you slide him? I would slide him. Would you put him that high?
Boy, I tell you, I can't. He's the greatest shooter of all time. No one has ever shot the way he has from a distance to create his own shot. It's astonishing what he does. I'm not. I'm not.
You're okay with him?
I'm not outraged. No, I'm really pleasantly surprised at the top. They got this pretty good. The one guy, a little too early for Durant to be 14 when you got people.
Where would you put Durant?
Pardon me?
Where would you put Durant?
Well, I'd slide
top 20?
Between 20 and 25 right now, and give him a chance to move up. And when we have this discussion in 3 or 4 years, then we'll talk. But he does not belong, based on his career accomplishments so far, to be in the top 15.
All right, now this guy, I've always, and listen, I think he's a gentleman. I think he's a wonderful guy. And I think he was very important to basketball. He was a great ambassador. I always thought Julius was a little overrated myself. I mean, I just thought he had some limitations at times. I really did. I think he was guardable at times. He obviously was a great ambassador and a great showman, but I thought 15 might even be a little high.
I think he's maybe a little bit closer to 20. And the thing is, his greatest moments were in the ABA. There is no question about that.
No question.
That the dynamism that he displayed.
All right, you and I are both going to say this, and this is going to drive people crazy. If you're starting a team, who starts it forward, Rick Barry or Julius Erving?
Rick Barry.
Me too. Rick Barry. I saw them both play. I went to school across the street from where they both played. They both played in the building. I went across the street went from practice to the building every night. I watched Rick Barry every night after baseball practice, went up and bought tickets for the playoffs when he was there. I watched him every night. I watched Julius there all the time. Julius was a incredible physical specimen. His dunks were unbelievable. But Rick Barry, people have no idea. He might be the best passing big man forward of all time. I mean, the guy he shot 90 on the foul. All he did was shoot 90 on the foul line. And the guys told me, I had coaches who told me he was the smartest player they ever encountered.
Yeah. No, Rick. I don't know. I think his personality.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. He's a nutcase. Let's be honest. I mean, I'll be the first to admit he's a pain in the neck. So I understand why he falls, but he was a great player. I mean, a great player.
You know, a guy I'm looking at that if we have this, revisit this in 5 years. So it's fun to think about. You know,
who
a guy that sitting at 45 is somebody's going to be dealt with, going to be reckoned with. Anthony Davis is going to move up.
And how good is the Freak going to be?
The Freak is at 27 in this list, a little high right now.
Right.
I think I would have.
And Leonard's too high too at 25. He doesn't deserve 25 yet.
No. You're right.
How about Wade? You think Wade deserves 26?
But overall, okay, here we go. Wade. You know, I'm coming. Not, I shouldn't say coming around. I'm being reminded about how good Wade was.
Wade was good. He was good.
Wade won a title before LeBron. Although that was controversy about him living out the free throw line in that series, I understand that.
Right.
But Wade's pretty damn good.
I agree.
I think I don't have. David Robinson is overrated to me.
I agree too. I happen to agree.
I always thought he was like a glorified 3-man.
Right.
He really wasn't even a center.
I happen to agree with you. I think David Robinson's overrated. I totally agree. Good defensive player, good player.
But I'll tell you what, on the human being scale, oh my God,
wonderful guy.
5.
Absolutely.
But in this league, I mean, no few guys have ever dignified this league more than David Robinson, and he continues to do so. But I think he's too high at 24.
Oh, I agree. I think he's too high. I totally agree. I mean, the idea that John Havlicek sitting there at 33 is offensive.
That's the single, really.
That and Baylor. Baylor should be within 15. I'm sorry. He should be in top 15, and Havlicek should be in the top 20 also. Havlicek and Baylor they would absolutely make the top 20. They might even make the top 15 on my team. So, I mean, they're both there.
Yeah, John, I'm admit to a bias. I mean,
I don't care. I agree with you 100%. I watched Havlicek play 1,000 games. Havlicek was as good, as you said, he's as good as Jerry West.
Yeah, he was. And he guarded, look, he as a forward, he was no coach ever benefited more from the versatility of a player than the coaches that coached him. That you could put him in at guard or forward, change the game immediately. Then when he became a full-time starter, all he did was make first-team All-League every year. He would have been all-defense, like so many other people, a few more times if they even had an all-defensive team. Then once they started having it, he was still making it at age 33. It's no question that this is the one that really reflects, the I won't say the ignorance, but the non-understanding of maybe some of the younger.
Do you think Kareem gets his due now, or is he almost? I know they always make sure to put him, and they did put him very high on this list.
Yeah, it's 3.
It's funny. Because if you count high school, college, and the pros, he had the greatest career of all time. I mean, I don't think there's any question. I mean, because his college career is so brilliant, and then his pro career. I mean, he wins 6 MVPs.
He loses 2 college games in 3 years.
Right. MVP, MOP all 3 years. His Player of the Year all 3 years.
And one of them, one of the most famous games of all time.
Right.
In the Astrodome on January 2068. He's playing with double vision.
Yeah, he's got a patch over his eye. Yeah, absolutely.
And they lose by 2.
Yeah, Elvin Hayes. What do you think about Elvin Hayes at 44? Elvin Hayes is a hell of a player.
I'm not an Elvin fan.
But he's a good player. He was a good player.
Yeah, I think I'm happy with him. He can stay right where he is.
Do you like Westbrook at 42? You think that's too high?
No,
or you think he's okay?
He belongs in the 50 to 60 right now. Hey, he can move up. No question.
What's your thoughts on George Gervin?
The Iceman, I'm surprised. I thought that they would be dazzled by the flash of the Iceman. Frankly, he was special, a wonderful scorer. I'm fine with him. I don't care whether you put him in at 40, as long as he's in the 40 to 50, that's okay with me.
Is anybody
Dominique a little surprising? I thought I thought they might go for the flash and put him. That's why there are certain things about this list.
No, listen, they didn't take Wilkinson, put him crazy high because he's a flashy guy. Listen, they put a couple of the modern guys a little too high to me. They put Curry, which you don't have a problem with, a little high. They put Leonard and Freak too high. But you know what? They're trying to put some balance in there. They didn't forget Mikan, which is good. They didn't forget Pettit. They put them both in there. We haven't mentioned Frazier, who's 39. And listen, Frazier belongs there, no question. When I look at Frazier and Chris Paul, Frazier was a lot better player than Chris Paul, that's for sure.
There's one interesting one in here to me. I'm pleasantly surprised.
Who?
Because I'm a big fan. I'm a member of the fan club, and that's Pau Gasol at 65. The fact that he's on any list.
I was surprised he was on the list, to be honest with you.
He got robbed of an MVP in the 2010. Finals.
No question. He won the championship for Kobe. Absolutely won it.
In 2 Olympics, helped carry Spain to scaring the hell out of us in the championship games. I think there's a point in time when he was the most skilled big man in the world. I think I'm happy to see him on the list.
How about your buddy Dave Cowens? You okay with where he is?
Yeah. I'm happy to have him on the list as long as he's being recognized at all. I can make a strong case for him in the top 50, but no, I'm not going to.
Do you think Ginobili's too high?
Ginobili. Well, I'm a Manu guy. I'm shocked that he's on the list.
I was surprised he was in the 50s. I said, "Wow!" I was surprised.
I advocate that he gets.
I also was surprised Tracy McGrady was so high.
Well, his career was better than I thought. I've been educated to him. I just never paid much sufficient attention to him. Yeah, but I do think it's probably a little high. We can argue that.
I thought that one was a little high. That one jumped out at me. Peyton, I thought maybe be a little higher, but 53 is not bad. It's still not bad.
I'm pleased he's in here in the top 50.
Yeah.
He's unsold.
I was surprised on sales. Like Reggie Miller, Reggie wasn't a great all-around player, but his ability to dominate late in games was so spectacular. You got to put him in there. That's all. He was a great clutch shooter. I thought Sam Jones would make the list. To be honest with you, I really did. I was surprised he didn't.
Yeah, well, this is one that falls. This is where the historical thing. People don't understand. How good Sam Jones was.
He was a great clutch shooter, just an amazing clutch shooter.
But a guy like that today could not. He sat around 4 years behind Sharman, waiting for Sharman to retire, and so he doesn't get to pile up the huge numbers that he would have had career numbers if he had been playing the way he should have been playing. But he sat around, kept his mouth shut, and then when he exploded on the league, he averaged as many as 25 points a game. He's still one of the great bank shooters of all time, one of the great shooters of all time, clutch, and he was a good defender. Great first step, great to the hoop. Underrated player.
Very underrated player. Very, and incredibly clutch. You didn't want him with the ball in the last seconds. He's going to make the shot. That's all there was to it.
I would have liked to have seen DeBusschere on the list.
I agree. And Ewing, listen, Ewing had a good career, and he was an important player. He never lived up to the billing. He never won. He never won a championship. He only went to the finals twice. He should have beaten the Rockets that year. They didn't. They don't win a championship. They won 50 games every year. He was 23-10 every year, 24-10. He had a good career. I mean, and he had a big impact. But I'd say his career, if you ask me, from the day he was in Georgetown, I think his career was a little disappointing. I really do.
Well, there was something. I don't know. There's some, shall we say, je ne sais quoi. There was something missing in the end. That he didn't finish. He got you. He got you to the 5-yard line, but he didn't seem to have that ability to get the ball and to get him in the end zone. For a mixed metaphor, there has that.
Now here's a guy that's hard. You could debate and have a lot of interesting things to say about Pistol Pete Maravich, who people don't realize the impact he had on the sport. They have him here in the 60s. I'm glad he made the list. The list should be there. But the impact, you and I know how important, just from a standpoint of the sport, Pistol Pete was.
Yeah, absolutely, positively. I was real surprised when I found out that he was as low as 68. Frankly, he belongs in the between 30 and 40 at the very least. And I believe that. I really do. Yeah,
there were things he could do that no one else could do in
there's never been
basketball.
Anything like him. There's never been a show that made it to the big time, that made it to the NBA. There has never been a show like Pistol Pete. How much money, Mike, tonight? Somebody says, Mike, $20. You're going to see this guy play tonight, and he's going to drop 68 without a three. How much would you pay? I might pay $100.
Hey, Bob, I watched him do it to the Knicks, and that night I watched that game on TV. It was unbelievable. I watched him playing. I saw him playing in the NIT in New York when he made the NIT that year. They triple teamed him. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I was there that day too, Mike.
Yep. I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, the guy, there was the impact. Every kid in America wanted to be Pistol Pete Maravich.
The only person who can handle the ball remotely the way I remember him doing it is, in fact, Curry.
Well, let me say this about Curry.
That pregame show he
I don't like Curry. Doesn't play any defense, and I think he's a little disrespectful to the sport, so he annoys me. But let me say this about Curry. Number one, he is sneaky. He is very sneakily one of the best ball handlers I've ever seen. Number two, the only player I have ever seen who can go as far from the basket as him and maintain perfect form on his jump shot was Pistol Pete Maravich. They both could shoot from 40 feet, and it looks like a 10-foot jump shot.
Pete came into they put the three in his final year, and that's when he ended up in Boston. They picked him up in January of 1980, and he played the next few months with Boston, and he had 3-point range. They've done estimates, at LSU. They've tried to go over game film.
Oh, my God.
They've come up
he
with
could have scored 80.
He scored, first of all, I mean, I know there are people listening to us that for whom what I'm about to say is news. Let me listen to me, youngins. He averaged 44 points a game for a 3-year varsity career at the highest level.
With no 3-point goal.
With no 3-point shot. Now, one night, I remember watching a game against Kentucky on a Saturday afternoon. He went 19 for 52. And you say, how do you get off? And how do you get off 52 shots in 40 minutes? Well,
yes. And half the time he was being double teamed.
And now he would have been a different player if he hadn't played for his old man.
No question.
There's no question about that. His old man exploited him as a circus. There's no question about that. Pete, wound up. It was a very conflicted and confused and very, very lovable. I loved him when he was in Boston. I was so looking forward, Mike, to him coming back and having a full year of covering him and getting to know him personally. And he just flat out quit because he didn't want to play for Bill Fitch. And he retired after that year in 1980. It's too damn bad that I didn't. But he as historically, let's face it, there's been 2 excellent biographies written of him, as you know.
Yep.
And he's special. He's a special.
Unbelievable.
There are certain guys here we can pluck them out for historical significance in their time.
Absolutely.
So 2 in the 20th century, in the first half of the 20th century, the towering figures were Mikan and Cousy. They transcended talent. They were icons. They were celebrities. They represented the sport for America. George Mikan, and Bob Cousy, and Pete Maravich was a special person in the decade of the 60s, and there was absolutely nobody like him.
And you know who else had an impact on the game, which you'll remember, people won't remember now, was Earl Monroe. Had a big impact on the game with the way he played. I mean, what a show he was when he was with Baltimore. What a show.
When he broke in with the Bullets, because people had never seen him because he played at Winston-Salem.
Yep.
He was never on television. Nobody knew anything about him other than they won a national championship and small college, which, fine. But the big, most people in the urban areas had no idea. And you know who gets credit for him? Jerry Krause. We'll have that discussion some other day.
The amazing thing, we're talking about Bob Bryant, of course. This is the Sports Illustrated Top 74 Players. The guy I was just thinking about, Bob jogged my memory, the most talented player not on this list. And he doesn't belong on the list. But he was physically the most talented player. Now, we know Len Bias could have been on this list if he didn't die. But David Thompson, who was Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan. Okay, and who Michael Jordan even talked about what influenced David Thompson, from the highlights he saw on him. David Thompson, who and I know, could do things that were just, you had your mouth open. You had your mouth open. He had a bad drug problem, and obviously won a national championship with NC State. And he had a huge drug problem in his days in the ABA with the Denver Nuggets. But what a wondrous talent. Because I see Alex Inglis on this list, then you think about how good David Thompson was.
You get a hold of one of some renowned scribe from the Tobacco Road papers and ask who's the greatest ACC player of all time, and I can promise you, no matter who you get, the answer is the same. It's David Thompson.
Oh, amazing!
That's why Michael Jordan winning that best college player in that stupid poll that they ran was preposterous.
Ridiculous.
The only answer to that is Kareem.
Kareem, and Walton second.
The only answer to that is Kareem, and if Walton wins one more game, he's tied.
Walton and Kareem were the best two players of all time.
Was the greatest ACC player. Michael wasn't even the best player on his own team.
Hey, his third year was
Bernie had a better college career.
And his third year was a bit of disappointment. The junior year was a bit of disappointment.
Michael's claim comes in the NBA, and that's fine. But he doesn't belong accolades as the greatest college player, not even the best ACC player, not even the best Carolina player.
No, I mean, not even close. I mean, we're talking about Bob Bryant, not even close, and you look at and you remember some of this stuff like, Bob Lanier, what a good shooter he was as a guy who made the list. That All-America team was the best shooting team I ever saw. It was Maravich, Murphy, Mount, Lanier, and Dan Issel. What great shooters on those five guys, huh? Amazing.
Yeah.
That was the All-America team that year.
I want to say, in general terms here, any list is going to be nitpicked to death. Everyone's going to have favorites. Everyone's going to have agendas. Everyone's going to have biases. That's fine. But I want to salute these people. If I say that 9 of the top 10 are the right names in the wrong order, that's the most important thing.
All right, let's spend a little minute on the top. Explain, if you can, how we all agree there's 5 guys. They've all won at least 4 MVPs. They've all dominated the sport. 3 are centers, Russell, Wilt, and Kareem, and the 2 great in-between players, Jordan and LeBron, who have each been generational giants.
Right.
We all understand they're in the top 5, and no one disputes that. We all know it's because of their championships, it's between Russell and Jordan for the top spot. How do you decide one versus the other?
Well, the problem is that the world is so different that they each accomplish things under different circumstances, against different competition circumstances, in a different time, in a different game. It's very, very, very difficult. But I will say this. If you put Russell back into this game today, I truly and honestly believe, without any change of body, and God knows he had the mind that has never been surpassed, that he still is the best rebounder and shot blocker in this league.
I don't think there's any question.
He's still the best. His athleticism was so far ahead of his time. That's why he dominated. He was so far ahead. And you put the package together, the competitors, they're so equal in their desire to win and their willingness. But the difference is Russell never had to be schooled into how to win or how to blend. Michael didn't win until Michael was willing to share. When he would make that pass to Paxson, when he would make that pass to Kerr, that wasn't the case the first 5 or 6 years of his career. And you saw that. We're seeing that in The Last Dance. No one had to teach Russell anything. He came in as a perfectly complementary superstar player whose skills affected all the other players.
And only cared about winning.
Only, never about. Now, was he lucky that he played for Red, who appreciated what he could do when not everybody might have? Yes, and he has said that. He was able to neutralize the greatest force the sport has ever seen in Will Chamberlain. And Will Chamberlain was a force of nature. This is what people say. Well, wait a minute. Look at the numbers. Chamberlain averaged 28 points a game in 142 games they played against each other. How about that, by the way? 142 games, including playoffs.
I didn't even know that. What 122? How many points did he average?
142. They played each other 142
And how many
times.
did he average? 28.
He averaged. Yeah, Wilt averaged like 28 and something, and Russell averaged 14.
But keeping him under 30 was hard, as a matter of fact.
That wasn't the point.
Yeah,
right. That wasn't the point. That he did what he did to help his team win. Anyway, but imagine that they played 142 times. Bird and Magic played 31 times.
Do you believe? Do you believe if Wilt had been a Celtic instead of Russell, do you think
they win 3 or 4?
Okay.
No, not 11, because Wilt was Wilt. No,
I agree.
Will had not psychological issues. Let's put it that way.
He had issues, no question. Yeah, absolutely had issues. Do you think Kareem would have won? Do you think it was very fortunate that Kareem linked with Magic?
Oh my God, are you kidding?
Had to be, absolutely.
If
I
Magic
agree.
Doesn't show up. Kareem's retired by 1981,
and maybe with one or two championships.
And he would have had one title.
Yep.
2 in 1980.
Yep.
But no, he wouldn't have. He had one title. He doesn't win.
One with
Magic.
Oscar. That's it. Yeah.
Magic rejuvenated him for a 10-year extension of his career. Remember, this is the guy who told Ted Green of the L.A. Times, "They just pay me to show up and shoot a few hook shots." He was bored. He was totally bored and then this kid shows up and changed everything for him.
I totally agree. I've heard some people actually make the point, "Oh, you guys overrate Bird because he's white and he's this and that." I say, you guys don't get it. You know, if you think that about before Larry Bird's back goes, he is one of the greatest all-around basketball players I have ever seen in my life. Maybe the smartest. Maybe as good. He was as good a passer as Rick Barry, if not better, but as good. He was an incredible rebounder and was as lethal a shot maker as we have ever seen. When he was healthy, before that back became a problem, I don't know if you can be a better basketball player.
Larry Bird of 1985-86, at that point in time, was the best player of all time, other than center, below center. I always separate them, and we have these discussions. The job descriptions are entirely different. He was the best. And Magic took the mantle from him when Larry's body started to betray, and Magic continued winning, and Larry didn't. And then, of course, it becomes Michael, and now we have LeBron into the discussion. Throw in Oscar, and there's your 5 best players below center, because the center is a totally different proposition. When we had centers,
no, I agree. I think if you take the 3 centers out, your 5 players are Jordan, LeBron, Oscar, Bird, and Magic. I think those are the 5. And then comes Tim. And then I agree. And then comes Tim Duncan, who was a great power forward and an underrated great player.
Wonderful, a low key, but only like Russell, did not have to be taught how to win. Did not have to be. He only inherently understood exactly what it meant to be a teammate and to know how to compliment the others and what to do. And he, too, profited from being with the right coach. That's nice.
No,
that's true.
He definitely did. He definitely did.
And that's one thing that he had in common with Russell and Magic did, and Michael did once Phil showed up. And Phil was perfect for Michael. So those 3 benefited. Wilt had a variety of coaches and issues and all, but that was because he made the issue. It wasn't the coach's problem. It was Wilt. Wilt was the problem.
No, I totally agree. Listen, this has been fun. I appreciate you coming on and spending some time. Thank you, Bob.
Great.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Bob. Good. Be safe. Bye-bye. Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Bob Ryan on this one. So we had some fun with that. Again, to me, there's 5 guys. There's the 3 centers, Russell, Wilt, and Kareem, and the 2 great intermediate players as far as size goes in Michael and LeBron. Then Oscar's next, and then comes Bird and Magic, and then I finish the top 10 with Duncan and Olajuwon. That's my 10. I don't put. And now the Sports Illustrated 10 was Jordan, LeBron, 1, 2. Kareem 3, Russell 4, Magic 5, Wilt 6, then Bird, Duncan, Kobe, Shaq.